councillors, staff, members of the gallery. Sorry we're running a couple of minutes late, 3 in fact. But welcome to the council meeting for Tuesday the 27th of September. I'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Also read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. Item 1.3, declaration by members of a conflict of interest.
Yes, I'm declaring a perceived conflict of interest. Been a member of the community group Prospect Local History Group because there's a paper naming me included item 1, discussion paper that I wrote on behalf of Project.
Right. Yes, I wouldn't perceive it as a conflict. In the abundance of caution, Councillor, we're happy
yes.
to take a record of that. Any other conflicts of interest, elected members? I will declare an interest in item 19.2, corporate nominations for local government association president and board members. There is a small fee that goes with board members, so there is an interest there, so I won't just duck out of the room for the first part. But noting, I want to get your feedback on the recommendations to the annual general meeting, so I might be the second part to work out those get closer to it. I don't think anyone's nominated for anything else, so we're right there. Thank you. On leave we have nil apologies. We have nil. Deputy Mayor Mark Root has flown back in, specifically directing the pilot for getting here, parachuted out over Prospect, so it will be late. Excellent work. Can I have confirmation of the minutes of the order of meeting of council for Tuesday, 23rd of August? Councillor Evans, do you speak to it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Harris, do you speak to it? Any further debate on that? All those in favour? Yes, carried. Thank you. The Mayor's report on pages 1 and 2, and a couple of things to add to that. I was at the trouble saying this, the Adelaide Metropolitan Mallee Association of the 2016 Onam celebration on Saturday the 3rd of September. I was delighted to have been invited as the only mayor that was there, and it's because I was at the celebration of Indian independence, which had occurred a few weeks earlier, and they invited me because I was the only mayor at that. Fascinated with going to other cultures' independence celebrations. Hoping that one day we might have one here, but anyway, that's an aside. But while I was there, they photographed me with other people carrying this lamp, and then promptly presented me with a lamp, which I was greatly surprised by and really delighted by. So I won't pass that around for you to have a look at. It is a bit weighty, so be careful. And this is a traditional oil lamp widely used in Kerala. Most of the households in Kerala light these lamps daily during sunrise and sunset, and it's considered as a sacred lamp. It's also believed that lighting the lamp will bring radiance of love and wisdom and dispel darkness and ignorance of one's life. So a bit of background for you. And the oil goes in here, and it's lit, and there it stands here. Yeah, so I was really, really delighted. So we'll pass that around that way. Then I'll go straight to the pool room. History cabinet, I think, might be a good place for us, and where we put our gifts from our friends as well. The rest of the Mayor's report is there as presented. I don't think I've got any last minute corrections to it. Any questions on that? Have someone moved that be accepted? I'll move it. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Mark Standard. Any further debate? All in favour? That is carried. And I should advise you that what's not in the report, and I will report on it should it transpire. Some of you will know that as the immediate past president of the Local Government Association, I had a seat at the table of the Australian Local Government Association Board. I had intended to retire my position with my immediate past presidency role in April, but I have been approached and asked by several of the board to run for the position of president of the Australian Local Government Association. So I've accepted their nomination, and we'll see what happens with that. The election's in November, so that's only really just occurred. So I am happy to have a chat about that at some stage with you, and it's really it's interesting. I really appreciate your support. So we want to catch up with each of you about what that might mean for us, and a prospect over time, but certainly for that role. Thank you. Living members, verbal reports from council reps on local government or community organisations. Do we have any? No? Okay, move on. Petitions, we have nil. Deputations, we have one. 8.1, Mr. Laurie Kozlovic, who's our presiding member of our audit committee, has been for some time, so he's an expert in our audit committee, and a local resident too. So please come forward, Laurie, to place a chair just here. Thank you. Laurie is here to present the annual address regarding the Audit Committee to Council. It's one of our key committees. Most of you would know we have the reports come here, but don't often get insight into their membership and their deliberations firsthand. So I was delighted to have you here. Laurie, under the rules of deputations, can you please state to the records your name and address?
Yes, Laurie Kozlovic's my name. My address is number 20 Barker Road at Prospect.
Excellent. And you have 5 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity, and good evening, everybody. The purpose of my presentation this evening is really to provide a high-level overview and an update on the work of the Audit Committee, the breadth of activities, the type of things we look for, and the issues that seem to be coming out, and really to answer any questions that may arise. Over the course of the year, the committee met 6 times, and had actually quite a very full program of reports that it viewed on average, usually 7 or 8 items plus per meeting. Over the course of that year, there were a total of in excess of 80 recommendations that were made to Council and approved by Council. The breadth and coverage of work within the resources that we've got, which for a council this size aren't going to be enormous, obviously. What we've tried to do is to ensure we get as broad coverage as we can on a range of issues. So the things we try to cover off on are general internal control issues, and by that we want to make sure that there's an internal control environment that's operating within the council that's effective, and that where we have issues of potential risks to the organisation, that they're actually appropriately being addressed. From a governance perspective, particularly in relation to policy and procedure, ensuring that we've got appropriate focus on a range of breadth of policies, an appropriate review of policy and renewal of policy to make sure that we are considering changes that may happen along the way, or any other circumstances. We also look from a perspective of efficiency and effectiveness. So there's been a number of reports that have been presented to the Audit Committee looking at different activities we've undertaken from an efficiency perspective, and that's really looking at how we're performing as an organisation, how do we compare with other similar organisations, and are we getting value for money in terms of what we do. So we've covered off in those areas as well. And then we also look at some of the activities of some of the related parties, related entities. So we look at financial statements, and we get an opportunity to comment on whether there's anything that appears to be unusual. And similarly, we work with the external auditors on the financial statements and the budgeting and the business planning activities that go on within Council. As a group, we tend to rely a lot on a set of general financial indicators, which are really health check indicators that we look at to see, to ensure that Council, when it operates, is working within the parameters of its long-term financial plans. And some of those parameters sometimes can be conflicting. So, you might want to move ahead in one area and it'll impact another. And I guess part of what we try to do is make sure that everything tends to sit within balance. From a perspective of the work that we've done over the course of the year, I think that probably the most pleasing thing from our perspective is staff have certainly taken on board a number of the recommendations that have been made, and as an audit committee member, we're certainly pleased that we see progress, we see action being taken on the things that we're finding, which is good. Also from the perspective of the external auditor and their findings, they've tended to find that we've pretty much got a pretty clean slate in terms of our internal control environment. There aren't significant underlying issues that they're bringing up and that they're creating issues. So, we're certainly comfortable as an audit committee that in that area, the control environment within the resources we have is reasonably sound. Probably the two areas where I think we'd like to see further work done from our perspective is we haven't really got into, from an IT perspective, some of the business continuity planning and ensuring that we are safe and bulletproof around that area. There's probably some more work we need to do going forward in the future. And probably the main one is really, from our perspective, ensuring that when business planning and budgeting decisions are made, we ensure that there is a consideration given to the impact of one decision on other things. So, for example, where there's a decision which is taken to maybe undertake additional projects and additional initiatives, we look at it and see that there is a potential impact on long-term financial plans. And then at the same time, there's a policy which says we don't have an avenue to raise the additional revenue to cover that because the policy when it comes to rates might be saying we do nothing. So somewhere along the line, something has to give. And I guess from our perspective, we as a committee just like to ensure that there is adequate consideration given to the fact that if there is a plan to, want to take on more activity and do more things, there is an underlying position where we want to maintain the sustainability of the council over the long term, which means that counterbalancing measures need to be taken in other areas. And certainly the messages we'll continue to feed back through to this group is to make sure that the decisions that are taken considering, the other impacts around financial impacts. Do you need to raise revenue? Do you need to drop other programs off to make sure that we can deliver the program that we can?
So that's 5 minutes. Did you need much more time to?
No, that was pretty much the points I want to get across. The only other thing I really want to say is there has been one new audit committee member change over the course of the year, and they've performed adequately well. And again, to council, thanks for accepting the recommendations, and that's all there is.
Okay, thank you. Don't go away. Are there any questions from elected members from the chair of the audit committee? Absolute faith in your work. Perhaps I think you did go through it then, but what are the things that, you're an experienced bloke here, involved in the large industry, been around a while, a long time, and think at the strategic level. You've got grey hair, that's right. What do you think of the one or two key things that our elected members should be looking for globally, but particularly with an audit focus, perhaps in the accounts, or how we reconcile what we do with what the community wants? What are the things that stand out for you?
For me, I'd say probably one of the first ones is there's been a lot of economic activity, and there's a lot of initiatives have been undertaken, trying to reconcile what those initiatives flow through to in terms of additional sources of income and revenue, and how we actually spend that revenue, what we do with that. Are they valid decisions? Are we actually following through to check that what we're saying we wanted to achieve up front, we're actually achieving it today? That's probably a key one. And another thing I'd say is the areas around major capital projects, capital spend, asset integrity, always ones which are ongoing significant risks, and we should never be perhaps underestimating the importance and the issues of ensuring we have appropriate asset management strategies for the assets we've got. So they're probably the two areas I'd say: economic development, ensuring we maintain the assets.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Laurie, for your presentation. Really good and really insightful. So, yeah, seeing what the Audit Committee's done over the past 12 months and really impressed. One of the things that you touched on was around internal process review with a view to efficiency savings or a view to efficiency gains. That, and I guess, coupled with information technology. And given councillors are changing, I guess, sector to be involved with, the big challenges coming up over, say, a next 12 to 18 month period, and as well as the opportunities in terms of, I guess, internal reform of our business model and the sorts of recommendations the Audit Committee might be looking to bring back to Council on how we can, say, improve, do things differently, challenge our internal processes in a way that will give us efficiencies but also maintain that level of internal controls that's necessary.
Sure. I think one of the areas that's been focused on, for example, has been the area of IT over the period, and there's a lot of discussion going around whether we insource or we contract out to somebody else, or how we best manage IT. And the reality is, in terms of trying to get economies of scale, there are only going to be so many benefits that you're going to be able to achieve within the pool of costs that you've already got and the pool of resources that you have. So I would say I would continue to encourage, as Council are doing now, to identify areas where there are opportunities for collaboration, to share resources so that you're not doing the same thing more than once or twice. But on the flip side, I would be saying probably the other areas are ensuring that you're maximising the revenue opportunities through those economic development activities you've got, given the fact that you've got a very stable revenue base, you've got a very stable source of revenue, and unlike other councils, there aren't a massive number of new developments and new growth opportunities that are happening. So how do we optimise what we can get from what we get to then share, I guess, the benefits of that within the community, because from an efficiency perspective alone, there aren't a massive number of savings or benefits that you're going to see. I don't believe so. So for me, the priority area is really extracting what we can out of the initiatives that have been taken to date and making sure that we're getting good value out of that, and really continuing on the road in that area. And the other area of focus for me again was that area of asset management, to make sure we're optimising what we're doing, because if you get it wrong, it does have potentially material impacts on the numbers.
Thanks.
Further questions? There are not. So thank you very much, Laurie, for your presentation on behalf of the Audit Committee. I'm on it, and Councillor Lane has been on it. It's always interesting. I always think that here comes the Audit Committee agenda, and I get into it, and it's fascinating, the breadth of what he's looked at on the committee. And I really admire you and the other members for taking an interest and helping us make the best decision making we can, and to hold us to account on occasions. So I think it's a very healthy check. So thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for your work on the committee.
So thank you.
Now, just while we've got the chair here, I would seek leave of the meeting, pull forward item 13.1, which relates to that, the report of the Audit Committee meeting held on Monday the 22nd of August, recommendations on page 4 and 5. All those in favour of pulling that item forward, all those against, it's thus pulled forward. Thank you very much. There are a number of items there on page 4 and 5, and we usually move them on block. Does anybody wish to withdraw any of these items individually?
Where, sorry?
Page 4 and 5 on the agenda is the Audit Committee meeting.
Oh, the audit one.
Yeah, so you've got all those items in there, 10.1 right through to 10.8. So anybody got any questions on any of these items? No, if that's the case, does someone move on block that we adopt the all of them, 10.1 to 10.8? Councillor Evans? Excellent. Wish to speak to it at all? That's okay. Seconder? Councillor Barnett? Excellent. Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you, Laurie. That's the end of any discussion of the Audit Committee tonight. You're very welcome to stay. Or if you
oh, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks very much. Swipe it out. He's out of his chair before I leave. Brilliant. Over the page on mine, item 9.1, item 9, motions on notice. We have one, item 9.1, Councillor Alison Bowman regarding John Lyndon Walk, increased service level. So, Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, I'd like to move that council increase the quarterly service level to John Lyndon Walk by including it with the weekly memorial gardens precinct.
Okay, thank you. Did you wish to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, look, it's just come about. There's a lot of people using that connector point, I guess, between the Memorial Gardens and Kintore, and also people using it as a lunch spot in between people who are working on Main North Road, which is great to see the parks being used. It's a bit like when we upgraded the playgrounds, we also had to increase the service levels. So I think it's a case of we've been sort of approaching council administration on response to it. You know, there'd been litter or debris or whatever, but it came to light that it's actually serviced quarterly, whereas Memorial Gardens is addressed weekly. And I've actually talked to Greg and his team about that increase of service levels, and it's very doable. I've also approached the leaseholders either side, the Croquet Club and the Football Club, and everyone avoid that service level being increased. And there might be other discussions about skins and food bags and things, but that might be raised as a CRM, but at least if we can capture it in the weekly maintenance, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Barnett, would you say to it?
Yes, and only unless one of the other ward councillors wishes to. I just had, I think it was just the other day, talking to a resident and brought this up. So I'd say, you know, that it was certainly been looked at and had been raised and all that. And I think it's more around, you know, perhaps it's in memory of John Linder, you know, a sort of favourite son of prospect, so to speak, and well known, and North Hay Football Club identity, and so forth. So I think it's just keeping that memory a bit more sacrosanct, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and of course gardens and the walk belong to everyone, not just one ward, so more than happy for Councillor Barnett to second that. Look, I did have a question though. Look, I totally agree with the sentiment. I think it's really important. And like Councillor Bowman, I've been on the receiving end of some emails from residents who are concerned about that and a whole bunch of other issues to do with the walk, so I totally agree there's an issue there to be resolved. My question is though, and to quote Councillor Barnett in previous meetings, this feels a little bit like policy on the run.
I'm not sure what you said.
I said. You can talk straight to me.
I apologise for Siri. The settings have just been changed from yesterday.
Oh, I know. Nick said if I can get away with the Senate, Councillor, you'll be right.
That's driving me mad. Sorry.
Carry on, Councillor.
Yes.
That's a train of thought. I'll just ask Siri. No, my question was whether this has an impact. If we change the service level for Docklands Walk, does that have an impact on other service levels? Because generally this is something we do once a year. We do it, we have a conversation about it, be it a big one or a small one, it's still a conversation about it at budget time. Because any time, as I understand it, we change the service level, it has impact on the services that we provide in the community. So perhaps I'll start by asking a question to the Director of Infrastructure, Assets and Environment, whether this will have an impact on other services that we provide. And ping on the answer that I might know.
Director?
Sorry.
Through the Mayor, look, because it's such a fairly minor issue, that what we're looking at is blowing and sweeping that street, or that laneway, while they're out there at Memorial Gardens. It won't have a huge impact, it won't have a knock-on effect to other services. But you're absolutely right that when it comes time to review all the services, yeah, we need to look at the current service standards and ensure that the elected members are happy with them and adjust them accordingly.
Sorry, just so I'm very, very clear, there's no impact on the services, is that what I heard? No impact?
Yeah, look, at the moment, because it's such a small amount of work that they need to do as far as sweeping and picking up some rubbish, it will have very minimal or marginal impact on any other services.
First of all, I've asked from the chair, how much time do you envisage that it'll take for one or two people to do what's been requested?
Literally, talking with the fellows that would be responsible for that, it would be maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes extra work for one person.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Okay, thank you. I'll read that as minimal, or what's the other word you use? Marginal impact. Because this is important, because if that's 45 minutes over the course of a month, because we do it monthly already, so it's 3 extra times a month we're doing it, that means theoretically, and we've been having this discussion for some time, there's 45 minutes of work that can't be done somewhere else because we're a closed ecosystem in terms of the time that we have for staff to do work. So sorry to ask such a detailed question about that. I totally agree with the sentiment. I think it absolutely needs to be done. It does feel a little bit like policy on the run, as I said, to quote Councillor Barnett, but it seems to make sense that we do it, and if it has a marginal or minimal impact, I'm happy to support it. I think if it has anything other than that, it needs to probably come back to Council for consideration.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Larwood.
Looking at me.
Well, it's strange if people would remember Larwood Lane, for instance, but Councillor, it's your
Well, I guess the question for the Director for Infrastructure, Assets and Environment is, or maybe it's a question more broadly, does this open up the opportunity for other similar type laneways to be reviewed and cleaned more regularly? I've got no idea whether our laneways are well maintained or not, but if it's okay for one, then it could be okay for others. I agree with the sentiment. I think maybe this one is a bit of a different case, but there is the potential for this to blow out a little bit if people come with further requests.
Thank you, Councillor. Director.
Through the Mayor, you're spot on. Where do we stop? If we do turn around and say, do we provide a similar service to all the laneways, that is frequent and once a week, yes, it will most definitely have an impact on our capacity to deliver other services across the city. But that is the discussion that we need to have when it's brought to you around talking about the service standards across city maintenance or across council as a whole.
Thank you.
Does this open up, there's always risks involved in new ideas, but does this open up the opportunity for some type of adopt a laneway principle when you're driving along the main North Road out in the country, you see that the stretch is maintained by the Lions Club or Apex or whoever it might be. So is there the concept that you could open up to the residents who live nearby or businesses who live nearby that they could adopt that laneway and they could send someone down to, there's obviously issues with health and safety and those sorts of things, but and that may be not a question you can answer, but I just wanted to raise it as an idea.
Sure. Yeah, Director.
Through the Mayor, yeah, of course, we're developing programs like, as we speak, around the Park Angels initiative, where we're getting volunteers to help maintain our parks at a very low level. Why not? We can extend it to our laneways. We've done that also with our veggie verges. We've got people adopting that verge and making it their own, or being an extension of their own garden out to the street. So yeah, those sort of initiatives are great and things that we work on, and this might encourage that sort of innovation in the lane space, in the laneways.
Okay. Any further debate? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I support it, and the only bits and pieces I'd like to add to when I raised once before, which was to do with wet weather, and it's mainly in the football season with the laneway getting fairly flooded. So with an extra looking at it each week, hopefully instead of Monday it might be a Thursday or Friday, and if we've had the weather, it gives us a handy sort of thing. I'm a bit cautious with my councillor on the left that sort of said about people adopting laneways, because if something doesn't work out, I don't bother to talk to us. It's people at number 27 or 38. They're looking after it now, and it's their responsibility. So I'm just cautious of that because I think it falls back onto us each time, and I can always say employ more people and do it that way. But I'm supportive of it in particular because I see during the football season nearly half the walking crowd comes down through that laneway from the other side, more so than even over our side of the road. And if they started winning, maybe more people would walk there. So I'm supportive of the motion.
Thank you. Briefly from the chair, I will as well. I actually think it's a good thing that we've had an embarrassment with the service level in the laneway. It means people are using it. I think that's a good thing. And it is very popular, I think, not just in footy season. It's a primary circuit. It's a walking circuit, and it's an access for people with dogs to the park circuit. So I'm just trying to reflect on whether there's a better used laneway in the city. It would be well up there. If it's not the top, it would be well close to the top. Simply because you can't get from Kinter Avenue into the Park and Oval without going way down towards Prospect Road. It's the only way through. So just the configuration of the streets there makes it a pretty vital link. And I agree, if there's a bit more scrutiny, then the water issues might get a bit more noticed and perhaps resolved. And I think there's some work underway this financial year to try and help resolve that. So that'll be good too. And I'll also acknowledge that if we do this to every laneway every week, there'll be a substantial or a material impact on our service level. So we might need to put our thinking caps on around the place. Because laneways are an interesting type of link. There's all sorts of issues around safety and lighting and access and fences and who owns them and the appearance. So if we have a few more queries, it might be a topic that needs a bit more attention. In this instance here, we're being asked to include it in an adjacent maintenance plan, so it's not a special trip. It's the same trip as they're doing for the park anyway, which I think is quite a sensible answer. Any further debate at all? Yeah, that concludes the debate. Councillor Bowman, just to sum up. That concludes the debate entirely. All those in favour? Against, this carried. Questions with notice, there are nil. Any questions without notice? Right. Okay, the page, the protocol is there. We have a number of items. The agenda tonight. It's a very long agenda, and I hope you've had a chance to read it. There's a fair bit in this in terms of feedback on various topics that are quite important to local government and us. However, having said that, there's only very few need to come out. We have to have a vote or a particular discussion. So 13.1 we've already done. Does anybody wish to put out item 15.1 strategic plan 2020 adoption of content? Noting that recommendation 2 gives the staff the ability to fix typos. I noticed there's been a couple come through, so we don't need to pull out typos. Anybody else wish to pull it out for any other reason? No, moving on quickly from that one, 16.1. Approach to... I didn't hesitate long enough, didn't I? I didn't already move on. Yeah, he's too slow.
Oh, that's
16.1. At your peril, Councillor.
I was just going to commend it, but no, that's
you can move them on block and they can't speak tonight. 16.1, approach to economic development, independence review and evaluation. Anybody wish to pull that one out? Councillor Larwood. 18.1, heritage reform and exploration of the opportunities discussion paper prepared by State Government in August 2016. Anybody wish to pull that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barnett. 18.2, review of development assessment panel terms of reference. Anybody wish to pull that? 18.3, review of development assessment panel complaints handling policies. Anybody wish to pull that one out? 18.4, establishment of open space reserve fund and open space reserve fund policy. Excellent idea. Anybody wish to pull it? Councillor Harris. Excellent. 19.1, I'll pull out because we have to choose somebody. 19.2, I'll pull out. For the second part, I want your feedback on the resolution, on the recommendations, which you've got a copy on in front of you. Spend a bit of time on that. Hopefully not too long. 19.3, update on alternative video conferencing facilities. Fantastic production there. Anybody wish to pull it out? Yep. Excellent. 19.4, local government boundary adjustment reforms. Anybody wish to pull that? Councillor Barnett. 19.5, office closure over the Christmas period. Anybody wish to withdraw that? 19.6, City of Prospect roads affected by utility repairs. Quite informative report. Anybody wish to withdraw that?
Yeah.
Councillor Harris. 19.7, parking at Prospect Ovals. Anybody wish to withdraw that? Councillor Green. Okay. I've run out. All right, so anybody wish to move on block item 15.1, 18.2, 18.3 and 19.5? Councillor Stand and I saw first, and Councillor Lee I saw as a seconder. There's no debate. All those in favour? Against, carried. All right, we'll move first to item 16.1. Approach to economic development independent review evaluation, page 26. Councillor Larwood, just a brief reason then if you wish to move it.
I wish to move it.
Okay, carry on.
The brief reason I wanted to pull it out was because I'm struggling to understand why we've commissioned this report, and I'll elaborate on that now.
Yep, your 5 minutes as a movement starts.
So I've had a good read through, and I'm quite familiar with this being something that I'm involved with in my role at council, and I'm interested to know how much a report like this would cost to have commissioned, and I understand that Professor Blandy is a well-known expert in this space, but I'm struggling to see, I don't know how much it costs, and I don't know whether we have to get this sort of report produced per se, or whether we choose to for some risk-averse was a different term that I won't use, but I just don't know whether it's added any value in my mind to what I think is already great work done here internally by the team who have put together the economic development plan. I can't see that it says anything more, but yeah, you know, big thumbs up, everybody. You know, I agree with what you're saying, and I'd like to pick out these two things that you've come up with and say that I think they're good ideas, and then I want to throw in some crazy idea about waiving stamp duty and increasing rates for all residents who will benefit from that when they choose to sell their house as a great way to stimulate economic development in the city of Prospect. I think that there's some stupid ideas in there. I think there's some wishy-washy statements, and I think that it doesn't add any value to it. So I would like to suggest that we reconsider commissioning such reports in the future unless we're compelled to, and unless they are going to add, you know, and this is my interpretation of it, and someone else might read it and say that's awesome, it's the best thing I've ever read in my life. But, you know, unless someone can demonstrate to me that it adds significant value to our already well-developed thinking, I don't know why we would do it. So that's not a question. That's just my opinion. And that's all, full stop.
Okay, thank you. And having moved it, now looking for a seconder. Do I have a second? Councillor Stanton, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I'll second it, just get it on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Harris.
Yes, I'll actually vote for it, so I'm not going to go that far, but I do get concerned sometimes, similar to yourself, these reports that come in, and unless they're really something unique and different, I find them sometimes a bit, what do we pay these people to do? Because my opinion, the people sitting on that side of the table, round as it is, are people we've selected over a period of time that can do their job and do it properly, and we have that faith. And then if we get someone else, and the order of the bloke's gone. But if it was sort of that sort of situation, say, look, you spent too much on your parks, you perhaps should have spent them on the roads. Those are the questionable things. But to get something, and I actually read this one through because I wasn't happy with his report last time, that I didn't find anything that I could come and say, oh, you haven't done your job, or you haven't done your job, or we should change anything. So I'd be embarrassed to say, hopefully we didn't pay him more than $100 to give us this report. Apart from that, I second it.
Well, you speak to it. Councillor Stanton seconded it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Right, you can have it if you need it.
Any further debate? Just briefly from the chair, the mover, Councillor Larwood posed the question, why do we commission it? Do we have to? No, we don't. That's not a statutory requirement. It's an interesting report in the sense that, you're right, it's not very critical of what we're doing. And I think Professor Blandy has credibility in the South Australian economic space at two levels. One is he's a very good analyst, so he can access the statistics, have a look at our demography, have a look at what's changed, and tell us if we're moving in the right direction in a way which I think the team would find difficult to do at the depth that he does. And Professor Blandy has a team working with him. So keeping that in mind, his other hat that he wears is as an independent spokesperson in the field of economic development more generally. And he is known for being quite critical of state and federal and local government policies where he needs to be so. So whilst I'm happy to agree that, look, the report didn't have a lot of bite in it, that, you know, it should have kicked us around a bit more, really should have suggested things, I'm quite delighted that somebody like Professor Blandy has written a report that tells us that the impact we've had is to times the job growth rate in our city fourfold. Increase it fourfold is one of the statistics that's in there. I think that's quite remarkable. And also to tell us that we're on the right track. When easily he could have said, you have no idea. And instead of that, he's affirmed almost everything we're doing. And in terms of where we go next, he's had to move to the perhaps fringe ideas rather than the core topics, because he acknowledges that we're on top of things. So it's quite interesting to get a report that says, you know what, I've had a really good look. You're actually making a difference. You're doing pretty well. And I'm not sure that I can add much to the thinking that you've already got by the good people that you've already got. I was pretty happy with that. The other reason I think this report is important is because we've promised our community that we would take some more money, particularly from our commercial sector, and we would invest it in economic development and form a whole portfolio. Now that was to the tune of about $300,000 a year. It's a reasonably significant amount of money. It's more so now because we've wanted to grow this portfolio ourselves. I think at some stage, I hark back to the presentation we had just heard from the chair of our audit committee, we must validate that we are achieving what we set out to achieve. And that's why I think commissioning a report like this is actually very important, so that it's not just us relying on ourselves talking to each other. Someone independent comes in and tells us, are we actually doing what we promised? And is the investment we're making on behalf of our ratepayers making a difference in the way that we want it to make a difference? And I think the report is a resounding affirmation that that is the case. So I was quite happy. I too moved on from that saying, well, hang on a minute. What are we going to do next? We're going to be challenged. We're going to step up and do something more. So I'm not saying that the report is perfect, but I do say there's a lot in there that we should really take to heart and feel very confident that we are on the right track when so many others are not. But thank you for moving it and getting on the floor. Any further debate? Councillor Barwood, wish to sum up it all?
I will. So there's some merit in what you say. However, you know, maybe someone with his level of expertise and access to information can play a different role and be brought in to the process at a different stage. Maybe he could have helped us establish KPIs moving forward as opposed to confirming what we've done. Maybe it only cost $100, in which case it was very good value for money, because if it was as simple as coming in and saying you guys are awesome, then, you know, there's 45 minutes worth of work or thereabouts. So maybe it did cost $100, Councillor Harris. So in that case, I support spending that $100 wholeheartedly. Thank you.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. Okay, next item withdrawn was item 18.1, Heritage Reform and Exploration of the Opportunities discussion paper prepared by the State Government. Page 56. Councillor Barnett, just a brief reason why you put it out and whether you wish to move it in its current form.
Yes, I've withdrawn it because I just wish to make a comment about definition of heritage and the Minister John Rao's definition of heritage.
Okay, and you wish to move it?
Yes, I wish to move.
Carry on, Councillor.
Yeah, so local government particularly, and hundreds and hundreds of members of the community have risen to the occasion and explored many of the items contained in this discussion paper. I think that's been very good. It's been very, very refreshing because, and I think Prospect Council has, taken the challenge on board as well as other councils. But I have attended, as long as some other council members and staff, some of the forums recently on heritage, and at one Minister Planning John Rao spoke, and it was quite evident, much to the chagrin of quite a few people there, that his definition of heritage was only about place. I've been reading up other papers from research papers internationally as well as in Australia, and it is an inherent a struggle to define heritage. And I think some of that's been a bit of a problem with us in the planning sector, certainly, and this debate about heritage and character. So I think somehow that we perhaps need to emphasise, I don't know if it can be done here in this paper, but more as that heritage it's made up of tangible forms as well as intangible forms. So by that, it's just from what the Minister is saying, he's only looking at tangible forms of heritage, such as the buildings mainly, right? We know from his comment that he doesn't like single bits of wall being classified as items of heritage. That's been quite widely reported. But there's also the intangible heritage, and so that's aspects of the country that cannot be touched or seen. So that's more going to the cultural things, oral history, and I think we brought out the point in our council discussion paper about the traditions of our Aboriginal people, Australian Aboriginal people. So I think that's the main point that I made, and I think we've got some good discussion papers going around South Australia now. So hopefully we can fight a bit more of a good fight and change the Minister's mind.
Okay, thank you. I have a seconder. Councillor Bowman, you speak to.
Briefly. I also attended the forum last week, which was very enlightening and inspiring. The videos from the forum actually available to circulate them to everybody. And I think just having talked about economic development and opportunities, this is something not to forget, that heritage does have a really big economic impact in a positive way. And certainly it's very much intertwined with Prospect's identity. A lot of people move here for the heritage and character those terms may mean to you. So I don't think development and heritage have to be mutually exclusive, but I think you've got to be really careful in this whole discussion, and certainly the lack of detail there worries me a little bit, that decisions might be made for our area and our residents without so I don't think it's heritage is something to be feared. I think judging by the number of people who attended the forums at Adelaide City Council, the Town Hall, last couple of days, there's a lot of support there, but I think it's getting the detail right, and the devil is in the detail. So I just want to throw in the fact that heritage is of economic benefit to an area, and we need to work with it. Some of the great things we've got in the Prospect area, and even celebrate different forms of heritage that we might not have previously recognised.
Thank you. Further debate? Just from the chair, I was intrigued at Norm Etherington, who's the president of the National Trust. Is that his title, president? It's not the officer, he's the...
Just been, there's been maybe somebody else re-elected, I think.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he writes a paper which I largely agree with everything he's written in there. And his take on heritage, I agree with Councillor Barnett's comment, it's actually very difficult to define. And part of the joy of heritage is that it's not that easy to define, but when you see something that you think should be kept, you'll know it should be kept. Trying to actually write down what that is and what exactly should be kept and what people can play around with, that's the art of heritage protection. However, his view was that South Australians have a real affinity for things being protected that were developed prior to World War I. And I read that and I thought, well, I may choose to have a different opinion about that, given that my fascination is with the Art Deco era, which is between the wars. And at one of the forums last week, someone raised the prospect of, at some stage, we should have a look at basket range-faced homes and ask ourselves, that was a particular style that was very strong. Should some of that be retained from the era? You know, I don't know the answer to that. Not a big fan of Frederick.
I do compare some of the developments going on in Campbelltown. I used to live in Campbelltown area, so yeah.
So it's a really interesting question, and I think what it proves is that heritage is alive, and that it's not easy to quantify it, nor to put things in a time capsule. But the process around heritage is incredibly important to make sure that what we establish as a framework can protect what we think is valuable now, and it's open for someone tomorrow to protect what they think is important tomorrow. And I agree with the Minister at this level. The current system we have is not the best it can be. Beyond that, I don't agree with the Minister much, but when a Minister wants to open up and act, it's a great time to get in there and get the improvements that we think should be there. So I encourage people to take part in that discussion, read the report, and endorse it tonight. Any further debate on this item? Right, conclude the debate. Sorry, Councillor Barnett, you should sum up it all.
No, I think it's a very good report.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. The next item withdrawn was 18.4, establishment of open space reserve fund and open space reserve fund policy on page 155. Councillor Harris, just brief reason why you withdrew it, and if you wish to move it.
I wish to move it, and I wish to. I've withdrawn it to ask a question about 5.9 on page 157, and at the same time I'll move it.
Okay.
Ask the question first.
You certainly can, by the way.
Okay, 5.9 talks, the whole setup talks about monies and things of getting in developments, but 5.9 in particular talks about, and I only use the last line, the contribution payable in relation to these two applications will total $519,000. Are we allowed to ask what those two things are? Those two developments, one, and if so, what are they? If not, it doesn't matter. And does this mean we can still get this money if we pass this, or is this prior to it?
Before we get too excited, let's find out why it is such a precise number. So, Director, can you help us with that?
Through the Chair, I can help you with that component. It's a precise number because state government, once you have a number of allotments in a land division, more than 20 or 21, there's a dollar figure that is applied that is payable into an open space reserve fund if you have such a fund. If you don't have that fund, money goes to state government. So the money is still paid, but it wouldn't be paid to us without the establishment of the fund. Further, the question in relation to where are they, I don't have the addresses in mind, but they're essentially some of the townhouse developments. The apartment developments don't constitute the same kind of land division as the townhouse developments that have got more than 20 inside.
I think you mentioned to me, sorry, let's jump in, just on the Chair, the site at 250 Churchill Road, there is a proposal from the owner that there be a lot of townhouse sites, which results in land divisions, which triggers this payment. That could come directly to us, but only if we've got a fund. Absolutely.
So that second question that was in the same thing, if we pass this tonight, will that figure come to us?
Yeah, Director.
Through the Chair, yes.
Well, yeah. Certainly, we're going to check. Sorry, we're going to check tomorrow for $519,000.
2 business days.
What day it comes to us?
2 business days.
It will be after an approval is issued. Should an approval be issued, I must stress it has to go through that process.
Yeah. Is there an application that might lead to an approval?
Yes, there are the 2 applications with us at hand.
Well, that's the end of that question to me.
I don't believe panel members lead the lead. Anything else, Councillor Harris?
Okay, I want to move it, and I want to add some things, or not add things to it, but comments to it. I want to move it because I think it's a good idea. I think it's an important idea to our city, and I think it's got a bit of a history for our city. When we got our 30-year plan, and people that were on the council, which is half of us, and some of the people around the other side of the table, and that, one of the big concerns when the plans came and developing main roads and things like this were happening was the multi-storey concern. So I want to leave that to one side as an individual thing. But one of the other big concerns was, as we built developments and we had these multi-storey type more than one places, and that's why I was asking where it was, because I was thinking of a place in Harvey Street. And the open space was, once we doubled the size of people's houses, 2 houses on one block, 2-storey would come up, or these ones on the corner. We had a old policy, which I still support, that no one in the city would be within 500 metres of a park. And of course, population started to go down and then things changed. But in this case, as we're building new developments and coming up, there's more people on properties with less space, so we need the open space. So that's why I wanted to particularly talk about this and say to this one is I find it very important, as we do cover land and build up on land, that we now will have money, whether it's the 500 or more that comes later on, to Churchill Road is a real good example that if everything goes like it's supposed to go down there, we've got about 3 odd parks along 4 areas along there, with the population of almost doubling, if not more, everything was successful along there. So to me, we can either buy more property ourselves or do something with the open space that I think our children need. So I'm very happy to move it, and whether we get that 519 or not, I don't know. But I can see in the future, that it'll be good for the city and for the children of the city.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Green, we should speak to it.
Yeah, look, I will, just because I want to ask some questions as well, but I'm certainly happy to second it. The first question I've got is the $519,000, back to that director through the chair, based at an amount of $6,488 per property. Am I right in assuming there's about 80 properties in that development? 519,000 divided by 6,488 is 80, so I'm just not sure my maths is correct.
Through the chair, excellent maths, but 2 developments.
Over 2 developments, yeah.
Just conscious we're going to come to that.
Yeah, just to be safe.
Well, could we come to something? No?
It's not my call. I'm just making an observation. You're not on that.
I
Want to be on that.
See, don't listen to me.
Can they declare a conflict?
No,
They didn't declare a conflict.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They need to move.
That's what I can say. So, no, I'm joking. So anyway, so going back to that question, so I just want to make sure that answers correct. I'm just asking the chair, the mayor for this, but I just want to be clear, if we haven't had to deal with open space before, does our development plan allow for that provision? Because my reading of the report is that if we, similar to the car park, if we accept a lower car parking rate, we pay the fund. I want to check if the mechanism is the same, that will forego open space and gets paid in the fund, or whether it's just a payment based on the number of allocations, allotments.
Correct.
Through the chair, as I understand, through the Development Act, it's just a payment in lieu of provision. And I guess it's at that, when you've got more than 21 allotments, it's accepted through the Development Act. It's not a plan matter, that it's one or the other, or is how it works. It doesn't come down to, I guess, a judgment call, oh, it's acceptable. It's either is acceptable.
So, again, am I right in saying that if the proponent of any division, not any particular one, but any subdivision, actually put open space on the site, they wouldn't have to pay into the fund because they'd provided the appropriate amount of open space?
Correct.
Through the chair, I understand that to be correct.
They still would pay.
No, they do not pay if they provide the amount, and there is a calculation in the Development Act of based on the number of allotments and size of hectares what that would be.
And, sorry, I know you answered this question, can you just answer it again for me? So does our plan allow for it? Or what was it? I'm sorry, I can't recall what the answer was.
The development plan is silent on it. It's a Development Act trigger based on the size of a land division.
That's not one of our systems.
No.
I think, sorry to jump in, I thought, and the question for you, Director, on 250 Churchill Road, that our development plan did require some open space in that larger lot. I see correctly if it doesn't.
No, through the chair, in relation to 250 Churchill, we have a concept plan specifically desiring open space to be provided
In our development plan.
On that site. It doesn't speak about any other application, 22 allotments anywhere else in the city, for example.
Okay. Thank you. Look, I just want to get some of that clear in my mind, so that's very good. And look, I'll support it. I'd rather us get the maintenance stay covered quite frankly, so I think it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yep.
I just wanted a question, and I'd absolutely support it as well, but just the practice of what we're talking about. So we're 3% open space, we're relatively landlocked, there's not an awful great deal of opportunity to really create open space. What's the practice of this fund we see in practical terms, I guess, once it's established? So the money goes into the fund, it sits there until we work out what to do with it. Is there a process through which we would then look to increase the amount of open space in the city, and what would that process look like, I guess?
Through the chair, whether you choose to increase or choose to upgrade existing open space, that is a matter for the council to decide. Essentially, money that goes into that open space fund can only be spent on open space, whether it is acquiring land for new or upgrading existing.
Cool. Thanks.
That's the money.
Yes, I was interested to read that. So we can only apply the money that is in this particular fund on our own land. Is that correct? That's my reading.
Through the chair, either on our own land or on land that we purchase.
All right, because I just have a query about what if, for example, a scenario comes up. So we'd like to expand a verge or a footpath or, some corner or something or other. And we work with the developer, but it's still their land. So that we would be precluded from doing anything in that scenario.
Through the chair, I don't think it's as clear as that. I think there would be an opportunity because it would be publicly accessible land. I think it would be able to be used under the ambit of that open space fund.
All right then. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to just go a bit. So, can I just add new territory for us, starting to get across it, but they have detected that if we don't have a policy, no one can pay us any money. I figure it's a good thing to solve. The rest will come. Whether we actually get any money or whether they give us open space, it's fully landscaped. Bear in mind that just because a developer creates open space does not mean that we have to accept it. So sensible developers spend a lot of time with our staff working out how could they develop that as a park that one day they could give to us. The reason they want to give it to us is that they don't want to be mowing a lawn for 1,000 years. Okay, so it's called a process of vesting. So they would develop the park and vest it across to us. So all that has to occur, of course, in negotiations.
It's just
Any further debate on this item? Councillor Harris, wish to sum up?
No, thank you for all those questions, and I hope, in fact I know, this will see us get more park-type open spaces in the city for the children of our city. I recommend it.
Thank you. We conclude the debate. All those in favour? Against, it's carried. Could we retrieve our
Bring in a torch.
panel members and future panel members? Past and future panel members.
I was just doing a head count then because it could have got close to us not being quorum.
I don't worry about that. Probably 3 of us are doing that count.
Let there be light or not.
Sorry about the lights. And that item was passed, by the way, but there's some good questions that those of you who couldn't participate in the debate, you might want to catch up with the staff afterwards so you get a clear understanding of how that fund will work. Just resolve to have a fund. Sorry, next item to be withdrawn was by myself, 19.1, the Local Government Finance Authority Board elections voting preferences. And you'll notice in your agenda pack there is a list of nominees for these 2 roles. And you'll notice in the papers that there is a fee attached to the 2 roles. You'll also notice that nobody from City of Prospect nominated, so we're all pretty free to discuss that. I'll just leave the meeting to allow us to have a brief chat about the candidates and who we might nominate. So I can ask you to suspend the proceedings until 25 past 8. Good, all those in favour? Against? Thus suspended. All I can do to open the batting is that I believe that Councillors Frogley and is it Sanderson are the 2 currently on the LGFA. I think they've made that clear to you. And secondly, that the LGFA has been a rock in local government. It's performed very well, didn't lose a cent post GFC, and it continues to provide dividends and low borrowing rates to us. So it's been successful, but it's a very important institution that our friends at the LGFA control on our behalf. They don't lend money to anyone else, they don't take deposits from anybody else, and they don't really keep the state, although that might be something that the LGA might ask. Now, has anybody else got any reflections on the candidates at all? Having read them all?
I'll just make the comment that somebody with some sort of financial skill would be in bonus.
Probably necessary rather than a bonus.
Well, there are some who may not have strong qualifications in that respect.
So probably.
Starting point for me, someone that working work for has a qualification there, financial priority.
Yes, this is substantial funds management role, debt management role, and the investment profile has to yield dividends that are acceptable. So they're using the money in all sorts of ways. So you need people who are across banking, investment, finance, so they can read a report. But that's not the key risk profile for the LGFA.
Oh yeah, probably. So, yeah. I haven't heard any bad.
Okay, so no one's got any questions about the candidates. I know this is difficult because none of us really know all the candidates. I'm pretty sure no one can know all of them. And I know very few of them directly, so I'm not able to add to that. All I can say is what I said at the start is it's going very well. So you can assume that the 2 that are there haven't caused a problem. That doesn't mean they should be 2 continuing. But you should be aware that there's no particular issue that the LGFA is seeking to solve. These are merely it's a required appointment time, so we need to guide our thinking on that. So does anybody wish to open the batting about who we might nominate?
Probably.
Yeah.
Present.
I was just, I haven't heard. I've only heard good things about John Frogley, who's currently on there, but I don't really know any of. I don't think I know any of them particularly.
Well, I'll put in for it.
Who else has got the so?
Okay, I'm just being advised we voted for John Froggy last time and Annette Martin last time.
They're only women.
2 years ago.
They're
So
only
she
women.
nominated.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
She's an officer at
Charles.
That's been for quite a while. Okay, does anybody, I mean, I've got ballot papers here to hand around.
Well, I'd like to nominate those two people again.
Okay.
Because I know last time, I can remember now it's coming back as a vision. After our tea tonight, I'm having a few visions that's coming to me. I can remember all the good things we said about both of them.
Oh, what did you eat?
That's the way my plate was facing. No, I remember we had a good discussion and we did kill these people. And in my view, unless someone says they've changed, different people, I would still recommend the same people.
Okay. Anybody got a different view?
David, do you know if the other members are elected members or officers?
I thought in the papers they said whether they were or were not.
No, sorry, I mean the other members of the board.
These are the two LGA representatives on the board. So, as far as I'm aware. Right.
So one's a
there has to be one from state government because there's a tax equivalent paid, so they have a role. And sorry, this is a question. CEO of LGA, I think, is still on there. And I can't recall, but there's one other. I can't recall whether it is. Apologies. It's a banking specialist, I believe. But I hold that.
So for some reason I thought we had a split vote of 2-1 you to the next, but that's I don't know about that front. On that basis, I'm happy to support Councillor Harris's motion of one officer and one elected.
We all had a vision.
I see the vision.
Okay. Someone's got a different view, and I'll give you all plenty of time. Just checking the board membership. We have Mr. Tony Pederick, OAM, who's the chairman of All Runner Computer Services. Councillor John Frogley, Mr. Matt Pinniger, who is the CEO of the LGA. Mr. Raj Rajamani, who's a senior consultant, operations excellent, GRP Global. Ms. Susan McCormack, Deputy Director of the State Recovery Office, who's the appointee of the Minister for Finance. Councillor John Sanderson, and Mr. Craig Fowler, who's the Director of Finance, South Australian Government Financing Authority, SAFA. So there's SAFA is on there because the funds are just some shared investment. Somebody, and it looks like to me, sorry, looking at that, I correct my earlier statement, it does look to me like the LGA appoints 4, and they must be in 2-year cycles, something like that. That's what I thought, yeah. And Raj Rajamani was an elected member on the City of Wales, I believe, when he elected. He's no longer anymore an elected member.
So we've got a balance.
Sort of. I mean, it's always hard to know whether on these sort of professional boards, whether elected members are the best people. I look for their qualifications.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done.
Sometimes the people who aren't elected members are not the best qualified. It's millions, tens of millions of dollars. I'm not worried about whether they've been able to win a vote out on the street. I'm worried about whether they're the right people to look after our money. Is that?
Well, nothing too bad has gone, only good things with the current one, so go with the status quo. Nothing else sticks out.
Well, so there is a status quo, which is councillors probably and Sanson, or we could, as Alan suggested, vote for Ms. Martin and Councillor Bob.
Did you say that the current board is doing extremely well, like punching above its weight, or
Remember before I said if you ask ourselves about how well we're going, we're likely to have a certain view. I don't have an external Professor Blandy view of whether the LGFA is doing well. I can tell you that they are the only one of their type in the whole country. No other local government associations have been able to do it. They're quite jealous, but still can't get their act together. If you have a look at the returns, they're quite good. And we get a dividend, and our borrowing rate is lower than the commercial borrowing rate. Could they be better? I think so. But that's a personal view, and I don't look at the risk profile, but they are very conservative. So when we say, why don't you, instead of waiting for the other jurisdictions to set up their own banks, why don't you offer yourselves to the other jurisdictions and become a behemoth Australia-wide? Won't get anywhere near it.
Can I just ask, and it's probably by way of background, what's this source of capital? Is it local government themselves?
Yes, the bosses. And they have 50 million in reserves.
So it's what's the return on our assets from the LGFA as opposed to what's the return we could get, at the bond rate or the commercial interest rate?
Yes.
Is that effectively? And so the return they deliver for our funds under management is better than what we receive from the bank at a high level.
Can you enlighten us on that?
The cash rate is very similar to Reserve Bank, but in terms of borrowing rate, it is usually much lower than what is in the market.
Okay. So when we put money in, we get a comparative rate to what the banks would give us?
The Reserve Bank.
But when we borrow, we get a better rate?
Much less.
Okay.
They're likely to be more sympathetic towards councils and their what they want to do, possibly than the bank.
We do also receive a bonus payment for the interest from the students. Depending on the year end, we usually do around
So if they were to chase high returns, they would have to be prepared to accept a higher risk portfolio, and that would put our money
higher rate or lower.
Okay.
You think in this mob of nominees, there was somebody who was pretty good at more cutting-edge investment, I'd be interested in having them as part of the board, because I believe the rest of the board is very, very conservative, which is a great part to preserve the current position. But this institution has grown in its coverage for years. It's very, very stable, and with stability comes incredible strength. I'm not critical about that. I just think they can do with a bit of a sharp stick around here to make them think at least.
This is a 2-year term.
To these, it's in their papers. Sorry.
Yeah, I
2 years.
think so.
So there's the possibility to have a focus for that kind of to maybe put a hand up in 2 years' time.
We would need to find someone to nominate. And again, they don't appear to me to seek out particular people to go on the board. They wait for the LGA to find and put people on. So, again, it's a passive kind of approach. So there probably is a criticism. It's a pretty minor one. Just think they could be a tiny bit edgier. I don't believe there's anyone in this set of nominees that'll bring that to. I support the probably Martin ticket, if you like. Just to keep one, change one, introduce an officer rather than a living member. But there's not much more logic to it than that. I think all the nominees have something to offer, and I think there's, some gender balance would be good. There's already a female on the board, but having two would be better, in my view. Does anybody else wish to add any more to this? Otherwise, I'll pull us back to the session and ask someone to move that way and test it on the floor. Okay, pull us back in. Councillor Harris, that was your suggestion, so you're happy to move that way?
I'll stand up for that. Yes, I'll move and putting Martin in the first spot, which is a woman, and I'll specifically do it for that reason, and then Frogley in the second spot.
Thank you. Could you speak to
Is the same
further?
spot.
Could you speak to it any further?
No, we've had a discussion and I'm happy to go as it is. Thank you.
Second. Councillor Group, could you speak to it? Any further debate? No, I'll put it to you. All in favour? Yes, carried. you.
Science 2 hours.
Okay, next item. Withdrawn was the call for nominations for Local Government Association President Board members on page 184. Sorry, if I go back. Otherwise, item 1 and 2 in the Local Government Finance Authority. Thank you for that. This is important. I'll take it, Councillor Harris, that you only moved item 1 because that's all we spoke to. Item 2 is quite a different matter that I think we should move separately for perfect clarity. You see all the extra in your papers, the explanations in your papers. Anybody got any questions on that?
No. Investigate.
Say investigate. If not, someone happy to move that item? Councillor Barnett.
I'll move it, seeing it's only investigating. I'll hold any other thoughts until it gets investigated. We're informed.
Thank you. Second it. Councillor Root, would you speak to it?
That's what Councillor Barnett said.
Did you sum up him saying that what he all those in favour? Against? Carried? Siri, yeah. Great, thank you. Over the page, so on mine and then the next item on yours, item 19.2. Call for nominations for Local Government Association President. Item 1, I'll leave the room for, and item 2, I'd like to come back and suspend meeting procedures, have a bit of a chat about. I know you haven't really had a good chance to look at, so I'm not going to hold you to it, but I think it's worth having a bit of discussion. And just briefly, we've only just got this. I understand that the LGA's pulled the AGM forward by a week for reasons I'm not quite sure. Somewhere in the back of my mind, but for some reason. But that's meant that we couldn't get this to the October meeting. The AGM is being held in the week of that meeting, so the timing's not quite right as especially this year. So that's why it's a little bit less than organised this year. Only just got it Friday, end of last week. Yeah, so after the agenda came out, so I apologise for that.
I'm getting 2 now. Did you want one?
Deputy Mayors?
Thank you as well. They must have stopped here.
Sorry. Just make sure that.
Okay. Item 19.2, and so just to reiterate, we're only dealing with various
Yes, I'm happy to nominate as Mayor David Lachlan as board
so you
member.
really,
Moving number 1. Yes.
thank you. Do you want to speak to it?
I did discuss this by email with the Mayor beforehand, because I was keeping a watching brief on what was happening in other councils. And so he did indicate that he, was wanting to stand as board member, a deputy board member. Because filled some questions from some other elected members who weren't quite sure about nominating for a president of another council, but under the rules you can only nominate your own council members. So I think that Mayor David Locke has indicated that he's still got some areas that he wants to pursue, and particularly he thinks he's most probably done his stint previously, and a good stint as president of the LGA. But I'm sure he can explain more instead of me putting words in his mouth. But that's my understanding. So I encourage people to support the nomination.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? It's a standing, we'll just speak to it.
Good, thanks.
Any other speakers for motion? Councillor Harris.
We're in Norm, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's just a lot. I thought he was going to nominate as president again. No.
That's not
No.
the LGA, that's the national one. This is just for the
the national. This is the
so that's,
Right.
that's a separate process.
Yeah.
And that's different to this.
That's different. It's just dealing with the
To go back onto the board. I'm very
Of the local
comfortable with
government
that.
association.
LPA. Thank you for that. Any other speakers? Councillor Barnett, would you like to sum up?
I think I've said enough.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Not serious.
Thank you. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
That's the Australian local government. That's another day.
Yes, that's more confidence.
Yes, well, you hardly get to see him there from there on. But, you know, it could. Pluses, yeah. I was going to say pluses and minuses. How far away is he?
Just in the building. It's 20 minutes.
County.
Sorry. I was cleaning up. Thank you for your support. With this. Now, if I could just direct your attention to this, it's just come out. I appreciate that you haven't had a chance to have a look at it. What I would like to do is just suspend any procedures for, say, 20 minutes. I don't think we need it all. So to 8:50. So you can have a brief read. I want to give you a few minutes to do that. Move to the back of the papers first, where the non-LGA board ones are. It's usually where the interesting stuff is. So just seek your leave to suspend any procedures until 8:50 should we need it. All those in favour? Against that are suspended.
What do you call the back page?
Hang on, let me just...
Where I better get my paper.
Yeah, so council knows there's a motion at item 8. And having said that, you could just also take note of item 6.5,
Yes.
which is following on from Prospect's motion. Following on from a general motion which we supported about domestic violence. I know there's interest in that.
So the back, you're going to the back, it's going to the second page.
8.1 and on.
Right.
Generally, all the rest of it gets moved on block forward.
Doesn't make sense.
You're up to the 8.
Yeah.
Well, you're on past 6. Can I just make a comment on the 65 as we go along?
Yeah, sure.
Because I've unfortunately seen some of the damage that happens to family wives and bashed and things like that when they come looking for help, I think the word vibrant doesn't quite fit in there. You don't want someone singing songs outside a shelter saying, come inside, you know. So that's in the B thing. 6.5, 1B, recognising local government's role to create and maintain healthy, vibrant, include, you know.
So still we use that one word in
Yeah. Well, only because we're a vibrant city. Does that mean? I don't know. I think it means
safe,
happy and gay.
Do it.
I think it's saying our role is to create cities like that, so recognising that that's our job.
All right.
Then it goes on to say what we should be doing in relation to the topic.
Yeah.
I wasn't,
No,
I wasn't troubled by it.
Yeah. All right. So now we go to 8 something.
Unless there's any other comments on 6.5? Yeah.
Well, yes, Part D of 6.5. It does say councils will investigate, so key word, possibly taking steps to become a white ribbon accredited workplace. And that is an expensive process to do that. And I've mentioned before to the LGA president, Burgess, that it would be good if the LGA could actually work with the white ribbon group and try and get a discount, discounted
Okay. Yeah.
for training.
I'm happy to ask that on the floor. To turn your mind to something more on 6.5, to the item 8.1 and beyond. And just have a quick read through all of them, and we'll come back to the ones that, so probably aspects of the ones you think we should vote against or put a question mark.
Do you want us to just yell out?
No, read them all first, and we'll come back, I think. So just give you a couple of minutes to read, maybe another 5 minutes.
Have we got coloured pens? I haven't even got a black one.
I don't even have a pen.
Do you want to buy her?
Yeah. We're used to having
No, here we go.
I can get
Steve.
some.
Here comes
Thank you.
Oh, I did what colour would you like? Black, red, and grey. Grey.
Ooh. Yeah.
And Diet Coke?
So we've done a joint one with Holdfast Bay on 8.33, is that correct?
Just spin through them all, and then I'll come back and work through them. I'll wait for you.
Shopping trolleys again. LGA might need to buy a few drones and on the with hosts. Thank you, you heard me.
Okay, how are people going? 2 more minutes?
Yeah, just that.
I did read them before, but there was something.
And then
Anita.
Okay, pretty right. Right about the last page, they're mostly ours, so don't stress.
we're going to vote against them.
David, just before we head into the aids, I thought their disability on targets were coming back to this meeting.
It's coming up to the next LGA board meeting. Thursday. I read those papers. And just while others are reading, I'll do a quick back, update on that. The board paper says that only 5 councils responded to the consultation call, and none of them considered that they had a need to bring in a target. Our motion was that the LGA investigate whether there should be. So the LGA said, well, with only 5 out of 68 saying anything at all about it, we don't think that there is. That's kind of a strange way to conclude that there isn't. However, they have said we recommend that councils, if they'll write to councils recommending that councils adopt sound accessibility policies and also look into their employment policies to make sure that they're fair and accessible and don't discriminate. So it's a pretty soft answer in my view. I'm not sure what we do with it from there, but you might want to have a think about that in terms of the next general meeting.
Can I ask a quick question of a similar but different nature?
Sure.
There's around 35 motions, and there's a relatively small number of councils represented through those motions compared to what we've got. Is that typical, and is there any... why is that?
It can be like that. It can be many. There's no rule. We haven't put one up at every general meeting. West Torrens generally produces a lot. Playford sometimes. We sometimes nothing. I don't know that there's any other regular players, so to speak. Depends on what the issues are for that particular council. Adelaide puts some up sometimes. You'll notice our favourite son in the IT world is now residing there. Picks it up. with these issues. And sometimes they'll put up issues that affect just them because they have their own act, but they want the sector's support to do something. That can be interesting. Okay, let's get stuck into it. In terms of the ones that people don't think we should support, probably, so we'll do it by exception, because most of these I think are fine. Can I just start the batting off by saying 8.1 Water Range Council, I don't know what they mean. I don't understand their motion, so I'm going to find out a bit more about it before I decide what we should do. And but you'll notice the motion in tonight's council papers asks you to delegate the final decision to the Deputy Mayor and myself to try and work through it. So we'll find out some more info and work that one through, unless anyone else has got a strong view on that one. I just don't understand it. The next one I had was 8.5. I think I know what it means. I think they're trying to get rid of all conflict of interest and informal gatherings legislation. I'm not sure I agree with that. It's a bit of a blunt way of doing it. But I need, again, to find out the detail of the causes or the sections they're seeking to pull out. At this stage, I'm not.
There seems to be some that are kind of similar.
In that motion?
Well, there was another motion somewhere about
The one straight after.
clarification about, informal gatherings.
Yeah. Yeah.
8.5, I guess it's more about the actively seeking it instead of, I guess the LGA will have some response.
Yes.
Okay, so
It's unlikely the LGA will get anywhere saying, can you just repeal the whole section?
I know.
Yeah, I think it's a bit advanced. There are a lot of people in the sector upset about the conflict of interest. I think we managed it fairly well here. It's not gone our way. But other councils seem to work out how to tie themselves up in knots and shut themselves down because of loose quorum. I don't understand how they get in that position, but it's maybe my interpretation, not strictly in accordance with the Act. I think we're okay. And others are worried about informal meetings sections. We've had informal meetings for a long, long time here, but we've made them all open to the public unless we have a really good reason not to. And that's incredibly rare. Other councils have all of theirs in confidence and only open up if they're a public meeting, which I think is not the right policy. So I support what the Minister's trying to do. But some councils don't like it at all. Just to give you some background.
So that's all in 8.5 you're talking?
Yes, I believe so, yeah. Well, again, I confess I haven't read the background papers on these.
So just clarification on the current status of our Champions Group meetings. Are we looking into that?
Yeah.
They're not a core 8 meeting of council. They're an informal gathering of councillors. Good question.
Yeah, it'd be nice to look at that soonish.
Isn't it on our workshop agenda
Yeah, it is.
somewhere?
Yeah.
We will be looking into that. The Ombudsman has done a review of informal gatherings on a number of councils and has expressed significant concern in just a number of councils getting together. So we'll need to have a look at that in terms of how the Champions.
Just thought I'd let you know, David, that I'm not happy with 8.3, but I'm not going to raise it because I also know how to count numbers around the table. A lot of other people like videos. So I'm not going to waste people's time, but I just thought I'd mention remote areas I totally agree with, but I think if you come on board, you come on board. But
So that's if you wanted to be an elected member and sit at home and Skype it in.
No.
Is it specifically for remote locations?
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
remote doesn't
Yeah.
mean remote in that context. That means
Well, anything outside the chamber could be regarded as remote. That's the intent of that.
Some of our rural
Yeah.
members.
no, it's not
So
about
the
rural.
intent is rural and remote.
on holiday.
I assume that it means that you are in that room or somewhere further. So don't judge the word remote by meaning that it's out back. Assume it means not in the chamber.
Yeah.
But be aware that under our legislation, our workshops currently allow participation by this means. It's only our council meetings we physically have to be present in the chamber. So the question's always been, well, why is that? Why does that make such a big difference?
Security.
Since we're on 8
How do you know that the person on the other end isn't mimicking the member?
Well, how do you know?
You're not, are you really you tonight?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
This is actually a really interesting one. I support 8.3. I don't think it should be abused. And just as we have rules that if you miss 3 council meetings, you have to get first grade, you can apply similar or even more stringent. I'm someone who travels not for my work, not by choice, it's what I have to do. And there are times where I miss council meetings. I mean, in the state, I'd love to have joined. We had a DAP chairperson who chaired the DAP for 8 months for America. Well, sorry, he didn't chair, he joined the meeting for 8 months. I just think it's one of those things that we'll look back in 5 years' time and say, I can't believe we didn't do it.
I totally agree. And I do know sometimes councils wait. They wait until someone's overseas.
It took us a long time to get rid of the dresses we wore. That was.
I think this is a way of ending that unfairness. Where you wouldn't have to sneak around waiting for people to disappear off well-earned annual leave to get something through. So they would be able to participate as a full decision maker. I think in the world of technology, it is a nonsense. I think that we don't allow this. But I agree, you've got to be sensitive. There's got to be some rules around it. Could serve your whole term in, Dubai and never actually physically be in the city. And I think that would probably be stretching it.
Well, I didn't raise it because I thought I would have lost it, so I wasn't going to go. But that is one of my big concerns, because when we did raise it the last time, the councillor that moved to Tasmania with a full-time permanent job, like Luke, I can't remember his name now, and intended to still get paid Port Adelaide Enfield, which in those days you could get low money, high money. Port Adelaide Enfield had the high money, and was it Nord? But I know the bloke. I've known him quite well, and he intended to go down and work with APSOL in Tasmania with no intentions of coming back, but wouldn't give up the position and was just going to do it by video. I don't think it was Skype and then, but whatever it was. And to me, that's not set up. It's a bit different if someone I think is going to be caught in Canberra and is part of the thing and just happens to be there. That's a bit different. I do agree with Chris, because we're a small council, but you can have bigger places that people can be intimidated. So I'm just letting you know that I'm not happy with that one, but I don't intend to put up any motion to it. I just personally don't.
Thank you. I need to call us back in the formal section, otherwise I'm going to have everybody up this end of the table talking about it. Because we've got to 8:50. Particularly the suspension of meeting, to extend suspension of meeting procedures until 9:10 should be needed. All those in favour, gets carried. So perhaps we would need to work up an amendment that we'd be happy with, so that there's some kind of boundaries around it. And I think the 3 in a row thing is easy to work with. It's already in our act, isn't it? Okay. 8.5. I'm not inclined to support it, but I've got a question mark against it, so I'll put a tentative no. 8.6, I thought was cute. I am inclined to support it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think it's double standards.
Yes.
I was okay down until 8.12. Has anybody else got anything they're not comfortable with up until 8.12? Yep, Mark.
8.7 and 8.8 seem to be both asking for the same thing but don't actually ask for anything. So they're asking for more money to be put into roads, but neither are actually sort of like putting a figure onto it. So if they ask and they say yes, they go, okay, then where do we go from here? So it'd be nice if one of those could be sort of convinced into sort of saying, why don't we put it, ask them to put it up a percentage or something like that. I agree with the sentiment both the motions, but they're not actually asking for a specific thing.
8.7 says substantial additional funding, so I presume it's more than $20.
and then, yeah, 8.8 is just increase.
Is that to take up the slack between what we've actually gone to the government to ask for South Australia? There's a, I remember vaguely that we believe underfunded by a certain amount. We didn't get our...
Yes, the federal government will now fund us the lowest
Yes.
per head or per kilometre in the country. It's the lowest level of road funding of any state, any territory. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And they can't justify why.
No, that to me would be more the nub of the question.
Yes, so 8.8 is about anybody, doesn't say state. 8.7 for some reason says state. I've just been advised that the LGA is recommending the two be combined. That would be up to the two movers to see if they want to combine it. Essentially, I'll take two things. One is, yes, we've been done it federally. The second, the original point was, should we have a more precise amount around it rather than just say...
Whether it's 20% or something like that, or just put some...
Whatever their amount is, that we should be...
accountable. If they're going to go up by a percentage or something. The other one I have an issue with is 8.11. It sounds like there's something more in behind the trail bike riding, and is that trail bike as in motorbikes or trail push bikes? Yeah,
But I don't make that much noise.
yeah, I don't know. Is there a little bit more information in behind that one?
The council has had significant problems with trail bikers riding
Is this
along
motorbikes?
motorbikes,
Right, okay.
railway line, rail corridor, and the rail corridor runs behind housing, and they have been battling complaints about that for a significant amount of time.
I need to know.
And they can't seem to be able to get police to actually address it well enough. So they're obviously trying to find another way.
Fair enough.
Yes,
Yeah, so I was inclined to support it. It's pretty specific, but if they've got it, like the others have got it. 8.12, I've got a question mark.
I've got a question. Yeah.
Smaller buses, bigger buses.
Well, one assumes I think the buses now don't meet the needs and use of the public, so I want to know what the problem is first.
The public would most probably agree
To a size.
to a certain extent.
Anyway, so we've got a question mark to get to the sensible. I assume we'll
If we can get some more intra-city buses,
Yeah.
I would support now city.
Okay,
West and
hold
west
that
to
thought
east.
for the next general meeting. Over the page, I thought we were okay until I got to 8.17, so I'm not inclined to support it.
No.
I'd be embarrassed.
No
Yeah,
way.
More embarrassing than to wear a vest.
Yes. I've already got a vest, so.
I don't mind people wearing vests. Just trying to make more laws around getting on a bike means less people will get on bikes.
It's a bit like banning black cars with tinted windows.
Yeah.
Yes. So all black cars should have flashing lights on them.
Like this one, Mark. Stand up. Hey, you're a fan of this one? He's thinking of West Torrens and put that in.
Depends how tinted they are.
I think parents and prams should have a flashing light in front of the pram because they often can't see what's at the front. And then, going around a corner, the pram front goes around before the person does. So I think that's a danger. Be looking at that.
Well, that sounds like a big city in the box behind push bikes.
Skateboarders, I think, need to be have some sort of, I don't know, perhaps something with a waving a flag in front of the skateboarder. It would be safer.
There's something already there
I
about
can't run that
GPS.
fast.
I mean, there's still onus would be on the person cycling to be
Yes,
responsibility.
the law is extremely clear. The cyclist must give way to pedestrians at all times. It is utterly, utterly clear.
I like the intent of cyclists being visible when they are on a road with things that are 30 tonnes in the dark, and then, but it just seems like a very ham-fisted way. But that's going
Well, we know how this came about is because one of their elected members had a sort of moment as he's backing out. Well,
you could do more with
motorists have to be wary because you're not in the right place in the law. If you back out and you're not somebody over, you're in the wrong automatic.
Exactly. What happens if you hit a pedestrian? Well, it's okay because they work very hard with this.
Yeah.
Fair go.
That's what I mean. I mean, the logic is...
You could probably do more with an education program. And if they said, how about we fund an education program into the benefits of high visibility as a bike, as a cyclist, or if there was a discount program on.
Advertisers could buy for free. They could advertise.
The council could. We could. Motor Accident Commission do.
Yes, they
They
really
give
do.
away high-vis trouser things and flags. Things to
Yeah.
go here back. Anyway, so I take it that we're all okay with that being turned down by us.
I really want to support 8.14 because that's not
Sorry.
But yeah, that's a bit hard.
Issues around cars on in school grounds, and it just seems pointless.
Because there was something at Walkerville happened the other day that had to redo parking.
We can't
About the
put,
kiss and drop zones.
we can't put kiss and drops in school grounds because
Safety.
I've got a tick against it because if we had a school or a business come to us now, we would insist on them having some ability to have visitor parking sort of element of it. It's really unfortunate that the load around all schools falls to councils to try and resolve. There's no money.
Mm.
then get rid of decks and just put lobby education departments for contracts. It is quite specific. Playford has quite specific issues in relation to some of the new schools that were put into the Playford Alive project. Totally greenfield site. They refused to put student car parking on site, and because it's higher densities around the schools, part of the design principles. And now the streets have significant on-street car parking issues for students, a bit like around Blacks, but that they would suggest that because of the inadequate public transport, a lot of students actually drive to school, and I do know specifically there was, because I was part of the argument about the fact that they wouldn't provide student car parking on a greenfield school site.
Let's just make it.
But I think in your comment that if the new school came in and into Prospect, I mean, part of our economic report is expansion of private schools, then instead of just debt, it should just be education departments of all kinds.
There's three that capture it pretty well. There's GET, there's the Catholic Office, and there's the Independent Schools Association.
I understand that, but you just put, they've only got debt there.
Yeah, so it should have
Yeah, so we can amend it to add the other two.
education authorities or something like that.
Yeah. All right, we'll work up some words on that. That's the change. Over page 18.
I'm concerned about that one.
You're concerned about them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense. The whole idea of the bus lanes was to increase public transport times in the city.
But does
Buses
it?
run the whole day. And
I hate those bus lanes.
we all hate them, but they said
Does it work?
absolutely.
They could work better if the buses could load passengers from the centre median strip, like a van. But that would mean they'd have to cut holes in every bus in the fleet just in case that bus was on the Curry Street run. So they haven't done it for that reason. But you'll see them move more and more towards corralling passengers in pins really that load straight on the bus and shut them off. Might come after the tunnel's finished.
So if members of the public use them to use them, that would be good.
Yeah. So I'm not inclined to support it because I agree it sort of tends to compromise the public transport offer, which means the public transport is terrible, more people are in cars.
This includes trucks. Is that the current legal situation?
No. Taxis, yes. Trucks, no.
So I've got a query around
Okay.
trucks.
I've got a question mark and a no against that. This statement convinces kind of say no.
I'd say taxis, but not trucks unless there's a good convincing reason.
I don't think they've done any research.
Yeah, because it works better on the Curry Street end. The Grenfell Street end, basically anyone uses it. You know, it's very seldom that it's just buses and taxis. But you go to the Curry Street end,
Yeah,
going through there, and it
it's
seems to
unsafe.
work a bit better
Yeah.
till you get down to the square, Whitmore, and then you just slide and you just whip around. But the Grenfell side of it,
It's very unsafe when you come around and say off West Terrace and try and turn into Curry Street. but you want to do a left to come down like, you're suddenly thinking, oh my God, and sometimes you can't even get over there and you've got to go around the mulberry bush again.
I'm going to look for that mulberry bush. Now we're 8:19, signage for bicycle lanes.
Hey, can I just say one thing on 8:18? I think that works in City of Prospect's favour.
Yeah.
Because it means that there's more people that just don't want to go anywhere the city because it's horrible to drive in. And
I get harder to see, so they come here instead. Correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, we were at 8:19. I've got a question mark, I guess, and I'm not sure what the particular problem is, but we have lobbied and got lots of signs on our bike lanes.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to raise one in the thing later.
It seems to me a lot of these, it's only a particular council issue, and they're trying to put a sledgehammer to a,
So this is widespread.
Yeah, where's the research?
Right. Next one I've got is 8:21. It's a question mark against that. Basically saying that remove the tripartite agreement means you'd have to negotiate with SA Power Networks to put a poster on their pole.
I just ban election signs and done it. Just ban election signs.
Yeah, so we're okay with banning posters?
You want visual pollution?
No, I want a great way of seeing who's running in my local little state, and that's a different state local government.
I'll email you.
I think it's great. Well, you have one.
You could stand out on the road and wave the sign instead. I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I worked for someone, didn't work for someone else.
I'm working. I agree.
I think the problem is there is one rule for us in our elections as councillors, and there's another rule for the other parliamentarians. They just seem to get away with blue murder, and yet we've sort of almost jumped on.
Well, hang on. It's exactly the same. We enforce the rules for the other parliamentarian candidates.
Did we find anyone the last elections that all put up a week early?
I bet we squibbed out.
We looked at doing that, but we didn't.
We certainly got pretty heavy criticism from people taking us down after substantial warnings to them.
Yeah, we did write to a number, and they had to take them down because they put them up prior to the regulated period.
That lawyer bloke here took no notice. In fact, he's still got them up now.
Well, no, to Kate Ellison, just to be fair.
So where are we at with this one, 8:21?
Oh, no,
I don't support it.
No, it's got a strong view.
It's going to bite us later on, isn't it?
I think it would be easier to ban posters than do this. This wouldn't ban posters. I'm fine to support it.
I wouldn't support it because we're having trouble getting people engaged in the process anyway, and so visual reminders of that nature, I think.
That's a really good point.
Okay, all right, 8:22, 3, 4, 5. Surprisingly, I'm okay with most of those because they're mostly ours. Over the page, 26, 27, 29, let's see one's got any squares. I'm okay with all those. And obviously on the back page, I'm okay with most of those, and the 8:30 is a regular request.
We might have more potency now with the current flooding.
Yeah, well, it might after this week. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, any other comments on those?
or just push 831 through pretty good. If you want me to come and we can talk to people.
Yeah. I've got some good feedback already about that. Okay, so we'll take that as informal feedback. I'll pull us back into formal meeting procedures and motion. Item 2 there, 19.2.2, Council delegates myself and Deputy Mayor Mark Quick to review notice of motions in order to determine voting preferences, and we should add to that noting feedback from the elected, noting feedback received from the elected members. Feedback from the elected members. Someone happy to move that way?
Yes.
Councillor Barnett, you should speak to it.
No.
Who was seconded? Councillor Harris, you should speak to it.
Just the same, I'm happy.
Any other debate? All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Next item withdrawn was 19.3, update on alternate video conferencing facilities, page 196. Sorry, Councillor Crew.
I did not.
Yeah.
Several hours ago.
I'm glad I did. I just have a quick question, but I'm happy to move it. So I wanted to do two things actually. One was just to point out and make it very clear, because I think this is really quite exciting, the reduction in the cost, 96% cost reduction since September.
96%?
That's 96%.
That's a reduction of 96%.
We saved the ratepayers money, 96%. That was that money.
Just clarifying from the chair, because 96% saving.
Saving. That is saving.
Fantastic.
That's more than that is, I think.
No, we want to say that.
The reason why I do make that point is when we started this process some years ago, it was so expensive. I think the first council to put our council meetings on YouTube. We're the first ones to do our workshops. I won't go back there, I promise, even though we can afford to, but I won't go back to that. But we were really kind of looking at that conversation around transparency. And I remember being reported at the time about the cost of it, and I think this is a really good story. However, I do have a question about Zoom. Because we talk about it as a video conferencing facility, and particularly picking up the comments, one of the motions around remote logging into meetings. I just want to be very clear, and the report doesn't answer this for me, I don't think. If a member is somewhere else, how do they link into one of the meetings using Zoom? Is Zoom just about this process in these meetings, or does it allow the two-way conversation? So can you actually log into it using Zoom?
Director?
As you might decide.
Through the chair, can I see your permission for the manager of knowledge and information to ask this question?
We've got a manager of knowledge. Oh, absolutely. Manager of knowledge, please come forward.
Through the chair, the answer is yes, it is possible to do. So what we do is we send a link to the person invited to the meeting. So click the link and the controller lets them in, and then they can have a conference, and you see them appear in the corner.
So what, they sit in front of their iPad or something?
The iPad, they can sit in front of a webcam, their PC at home, anywhere in the world.
Yeah, thank you. So let me get this right. Not only are we saving 96% of the cost, but we're also making it easy to do. Yes. Excellent. That's what I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Council. You've got a story in there somewhere. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowman, who should speak to it?
Again, saving money is always fantastic, but can I ask you a question through the chair?
Yeah.
So it says the alternative video conferencing facility. Our current facility, are we talking about a bricks and mortar facility or just the carriage service?
Through the chair, so FaceMe itself is a software. So this is equipment that remains here, and we're just using software. So what we're doing is changing the software. So the main reduction in cost is that FaceMe used physical equipment, hardware. Since in the server room, we have no requirement for that anymore. So we're just going to be using directly online conferencing facility.
Because I was aware that we did have a video conferencing facility at the Digital Hub, which is no longer in use. Has any of that equipment been repurposed? Could it be?
Potentially. We have to investigate. It's several years old now. It wasn't used extensively.
It wasn't used or it wasn't promoted. I think that
3 years later, it's fairly new, but I don't think it's been used extensively.
Yeah. I guess with anything to do with video conferencing, I think it's also part of educating our public. Educating the public, because we do have a digital focus, and certainly even as elected members, we'd like to be able to use digital conferencing with other councils, maybe overseas through smart intelligent communities, that kind of thing. So I think it's not just having the facility, it's also promoting it.
Yeah, thank you. Any further debate? So, Councillor Stan.
I think this is fantastic. From what I understand, we're saving 96%.
Let me check. Yes.
96. That's fantastic. I think it's great. I love the whole technology of it. The one thing I've been noticing recently is on my Facebook feed, there has been advertisers and other groups that will bring up a live feed of something they're doing, usually taken with an iPhone or whatever, and when that's over, it automatically gets digitised and is then there for everyone to see. My question to the Manager of All Knowledge would be, is it possible, when we're using the Zoom technology, is it possible to maybe simulcast to one of the more popular social media formats, such as Facebook or YouTube? I understand have the same facility. Is it possible that we might be able to run two streams out, one into the Zoom and maybe even live one into the Facebook feed that we already have with Prospect? So when our residents are sitting there, all of a sudden it pops up on their Facebook feed that there's a council meeting happening live.
The question?
Yeah, it's a question.
No. Manager Knowledge?
Through the chair, I'll be quite frank, I can't answer that question. I've said that I know this is a check.
Not a problem, Fanny.
I found the first hurdle. Thank you, Councillor. Any further debate inside? Councillor Booth, we should sum up.
Oh, look, I just think there were two really important points made by Councillor Bowman and Councillor Standard, which was that there is a saving, 96% saving. I think it's fantastic news. I think the issue about going live, though, is a really interesting one, and I probably can't ask a question because I may summing up, but if I was able to ask a question, it would be something along the lines of, could we do that individually during council meeting? Probably not. I think it's a really interesting point about for the meeting to do it. It's a fantastic idea. I'm sure it will get unanimous support at the table, but 96% saving, who would say yes?
Okay, thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour of that, against, carried? They all did say yes. Okay, 19.4, Local Government Boundary Adjustment Reform, was withdrawn by Councillor Barnett. Please, if you want to move it.
Yes, it was mainly, but I just remembered in some discussion that when these things go to our esteemed members of Parliament, they can change things. And I just have a memory that a member of Parliament was talking about that the minimum number of electors be 51%. So I guess I'm just wanting to make sure, even though the members of Parliament can change it, of course, even though we, think yes, we'd like to go ahead with it. So I'm just wary, I think, about. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Nigel, are you happy to move it?
Oh yes, yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. We have a seconder. Councillor Brooke, wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Against is carried. Okay, next item withdrawn was 19.6, City of Prospect Roads affected by utility repairs. Councillor Harris.
Yes, I pulled it out to make a couple of comments on it, but I will be moving it because the council receives notes report. I thank Greg's department very much for that. I actually had a good look at it and followed it up. It still didn't 100% end up. My concern was the roads I had in my head in particular were not here because they were recent ones over the other side of Main North Road, where both ESSA and even now the gas company's in there as well. That I do not know. I had some photos, but it's too hard to find the little bangos. But where we sealed some roads, in particular Emily, not Ralph Street, Emily, Jones, Davies, those ones down along there, then from your street, Mawson Street, round the corner, that a big exercise happened by ETSA, opened it up, wasn't closed in. We had pretty bad sort of weather. So the report talks about the problem alongside where they're doing work, and I think that's very good. But my concern came with the little bit of knowledge I had that once water gets under and moves along underneath the bitumen further down the track, you can have that loosening underneath. If you go down Emily Street at the moment, and it's quite current at the moment, is near 2nd, 1st and not so much 2nd, 1st and Morsel, where the crossovers are, there seems to be far more rocks coming up through the openings. And right now on 2nd, there's about 4 openings that come very quick. So, yes, I'm very happy with this because it has shown, and to me, it shows that it does do damage alongside, particularly if they've got a small area compacting it down again. But the other concern I had was for the length of the, further down the road, not just where the hole is, that we go and we cover it in, we spray, we do it properly, spray it or put a new one, someone digs it up again, and if it's left in the weather, particularly tomorrow and the next day is going to be an example of the gas company that's digging them up, they're going to really get hit with this weather if it comes, but you don't know. That water damage is going to get underneath, pick it up. So that's just that bit further concern I have, that the area's a bit further down where the damage is. But apart from that, it's accepting the report and I think it's quite good and happy to move it.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Stanton, wish to speak to it?
No, good, thanks.
Further debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Further page, last item withdrawn, parking at Prospect Oval. Councillor Quick.
Thank you. I just had a quick question, and apologies, I I'll take this opportunity to also move it. I noticed that we're going to enter into an agreement with Clayton Church Homes, which I'm supportive of, in order to access some of the parking area for 10 car parks, short-term car parks. However, it runs to the 31st of May 2017, and they are 7-day permits. And apologies if I misread anything, but I don't understand how that's going to work in football days, because technically they would be eligible to take their 10 parks on football day, which will be in the period of February, March to May. So have we thought about that, about what we might do?
That question, Director.
Through the Mayor, I was led to believe that football days are excluded from that permit. So that's an agreement that they've made with the Northland Land Football Club. But I can clarify that and send out a memorandum accordingly.
Is that in the report? Because I don't think that's actually in the report.
Yeah, through the Mayor, that was, and that's what I need to confirm. That was some discussions that I've had with Greg Edwards from the club.
I don't recall it in the report.
I said it's not, it's not.
And
sorry. The pieces.
yeah, so it does expire in May, and the season starts in April, mid-April.
Yeah.
So it might be 2 home games that it affects. It could also be extended if they haven't finished their building work on time. As mover, are you moving this motion as it's before us, or are you moving something that...
Well, I was proposing maybe we could move excluding home football games.
Yeah, well, that might be better.
The council was happy with that, excluding days.
Sandful.
Home football games.
Yes. It's a sample, is it? It's not any other.
I presume that cricket will be less affected by it, but given its crowd numbers are probably less for excluding days where football and cricket.
Cricket doesn't present a crowd parking problem, does it? They would love it to be a problem.
Excluding days where football...
They're the ones that...
I think it was pretty good.
Well,
yeah.
I'm value adding here. Happy with leave? Yeah, I'm happy to leave it. The intent is known, I estimate that. So it's not it's the more. I like that. Yes.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to him?
Yes, because I got two questions. First, I look at the back of the document, so I don't know where it is in the EPID or anywhere. Attachment 1, and it's got the map and it's got the area for the hospital parking, and no parking along by the cricket club, and a work zone and with no parking. You can go there during the day. That's where all the cars are. You'll recognise it easy, and the vehicles. But my concern comes only with us now as the owners of the property. We've gone through a whole process where we've made sure the Oval is open to the general public and all that stuff, and it's closed at night. And it has been for quite some time for safety reasons. It's closed at night. Now this CCH parking, and rightly so, quite a few of those are the nursing staff and the employees that work there. I just have a bit of concern on our property because we have had discussions as a council about people feeling safe in there. If I was a young nurse, I wouldn't like to be parking there in the dark while that's a whole open set. So is that only a daytime parking for the hospital, or do now our security people don't lock that gate?
That's a good question. Director, night security.
Through the Mayor, the dusk to dawn or dusk and dawn opening and closing hasn't been varied. So I assume that will carry on. So nothing's brought to my attention that we're going to vary those opening and closing times.
I just asked from the chair what happens when they go out of their car at 10:50 p.m. and the gate's locked.
Very good question. I'll have to take that on notice. I would assume that they would respect those opening and closing times.
As a nurse, you may be called to do extra work.
The danger is that we're giving them the permit but not giving them access. It doesn't work. Well, they have to change the. I think it's a good question.
It is.
Whether change it from 6 a.m. to dusk or from dawn to dusk to match the terminology of our security contract, or change our security contract arrangements, which might cost money.
I also have, even the cost of money, that didn't enter my head, but that would be. My concern comes, and if a nurse, and other people, but particularly a nurse, is parked in there and their shifts are 3 to 11, 11 to 6:30 and 6:30 to 3, that they can get stuck, because I know I've hired the Oval through C-Bus, and if your car's there on the other side and it's dark, they lock it in and you're stuck there till you get to the next day. So that's been at the RSL one. So I'm just two sort of fold, because if you've got the gate open while those people are still working, then you can get some yabbies in there and it can cause problems to our property, to the football's property, and particularly to the staff, more so than...
Can I suggest, perhaps not just rules that some may use to chair a meeting, that the movement is second to consider changing 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. to dawn to dusk, because I agree there's a security problem. And that if they want to have a safer park, they move their car to the street, which after dusk is relatively empty and it's lit.
Yeah.
So if the movement sector are happy with that change, I'll seek leave of the meeting.
Yes, I'm happy.
And Director, can I just check that that's not going to compromise your negotiations? I'll seek leave of the meeting to incorporate that change. All those in favour? Yes, it's carried. Thank you, Councillor. You had another point?
No, well, that was the main one, and as I said, the red square down the bottom where it says work zone, no parking. I'd love to see the no parking go, because it's chock-a-block every day full of vehicles. But that's just a comment. But look, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with seconding it, because it goes back to when we originally raised it, and it was raised, about the car yard and things like that. It still keeps our finger on our pulse looking after our property. So I'm happy with the whole outcome, how it's come up in the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Stanley.
I would imagine by putting it to dawn to dusk, it probably defines the car parks being used for visitors, for people coming visiting people rather than employees. So if you're an employee, you know that you're not going to park there, you just put the car on the road or whatever it is during the day. So it probably changes the intent of the car parks. And structure. Are the car parks actually really there for employees, or are they there for short-term visitors?
Through the Mayor, they're most definitely for employees.
Okay.
Just from memory, I think there's 25 car parks at the moment. So this is only 10. So this is, I think, key employees, and then saying everyone else just park somewhere else for this next 12 months. Anything further, Councillor?
No, that's it. That's answered my question.
Yes, I'm just wondering, so how do we define from dawn to dusk? Is that like as it's noted in by the Weather Bureau or the advertiser, or what's the standard?
Sorry, it's a good question, Councillor. I've merely taken liberties to use the same language the Director is using, which is, I believe, how our security contract is established. So they, and I can tell you they don't turn up bang on dusk. They're usually always late, which is better for people who are kind of using it, so I'm okay with that. But what I didn't want to have was different terminology in this to the security contract. Yes. So that the hospital, I imagine, hospital, let's go back. Church homes will need to find out from the security contractor what their routine is.
Yes. If supplementary, would it be more an explanatory thing to put from dawn to dusk in accordance with council's security arrangements?
Big enough.
The Oval. Because, I mean, that's why we're putting it there.
Well, Director, would that help clarify it, or are you?
Yeah, through the Mayor, we could include sunrise, sunset, if that makes it a bit clearer.
That's what's on the sign, I think.
I think I just want to use the same terminology that's in the security contract, or we could change it to, as Councillor Barnett is suggesting, to match the terms of the security contract, or whatever you call that contract for the Oval. It's probably getting a bit operational in that detail.
Yes.
Is a security contract just avoiding you? What do you call that arrangement? People to lock the gates.
Exactly that. The opening and closing of the council's facilities, public facilities.
Yes. There's a sign up there on the actual Wilcox Avenue gate.
The contract to open and close council's facilities. Yes.
And it's from sunrise and sunset.
Has
somebody got their Google on there? I don't know. But,
council's facilities. I just seek leave of the meeting to incorporate that change. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Mr. Secretary, for agreeing. Oh, that was very quick. Very, very quick. Anything further, Councillor Barnett? Any further debate? All those in favour? Carried. Fine, thanks for summing up. Right, Council Diary. There's a whole heap of stuff happening. Great to see. Starting to ramp up into the spring and summer months. Two things to point out. In particular, three things. The Friends of the Library book sale on at the Prospect Library this year. Did that happen last year?
Yes.
Right. Okay. It's not the town hall.
No, it was at the library.
The Anime Festival, the first time we've had that, quite a large grant, so it'd be great for you to circulate that to your friends and kids and whatnot and see if we can make that really, really successful. It'll be the only dress up. Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I might go as a mayor. So hopefully that can be really good. And the third one that I want to mention is not on here. That's the Broadview Community Day. It's not a council event. It's a community in action event, which I think is terrific. Hopefully it's really successful, and I'm sure you will be invited to that. No council standing can't be there. Does everybody else know about that event?
Yes, I'm there. I'm a stall.
Okay. So Sunday, 16th of October. Any general business? Councillor Harris.
Yes, we did discuss earlier about signs on with regards bikeways, but my not urgent nature thing, but on the bikeway on Main North Road, when both it's open, and I'm talking about going into the city, the gas people are working currently in Jones Street, but they're coming along all the streets, and they've got beautiful signage saying road closed or 25 kilometres around the corner, all that stuff, and they're putting the signs on the road, on the bike track. Yeah. So I didn't want to, it's not a big thing, but it is if you've got one of these push bikes, you can't get over the stuff.
You're dead right. Yeah. So can we take that as a matter of minor nature, perhaps, by the administration, if the administration could talk to them about that? They're going to have a problem with it, but I agree. It pushes a cyclist down into the traffic lane.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further general business? Any general business of an urgent nature? No. There are nil confidential items. Meeting is closed.